All right, I admit it. We have made some pretty big mistakes here at the Dig Agency, and I'm coming clean. The purpose of this video is to give you some insight on some big business decisions we made at the end of 2024, the consequences that it had on the way we do business, and how we hope at least we have corrected some of those mistakes and some lessons that I have learned. And, I'm putting this out here because kind of my style is to be transparent and honest. And I don't like to just put out the content of how awesome we are because we all make mistakes. And part of being in business is it's like being a parent. There's no guidebook on how to do things. You really have to kind of figure it out as you go. And you hope that most of the time you get it right. And then those times when you get it wrong, you see it quickly and then fix those mistakes that you thought were actually improvements, as you will find out. So that's hopefully what we've done. And I like to inform you of this because we're all human here and we don't always do the right thing or the best thing. And I like to keep it real. So what exactly did we do wrong at the Dig Agency? Well, it all starts with a little backstory, so I hope you'll afford me the time to explain it to you, because I think it's important to understand that, as I get older, a lot of these sayings like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, there's actually some bearing and reason why those sayings are true. And even though sometimes you try to do the right thing or what you think is the best thing or to fix something that's broken, you may run into a situation where you break something along the way that you didn't intend to. So that's kind of what happened. So here's what happened. So we've had a banner year at the Dig Agency. We started our free lead organization into 2023 and started into 2024 with just a handful of agents. We ended the year, we had 173 agents write business. Our top 25 agents averaged $200,000 in sales. We did a total of $7.99 million in 2024 just on free leads alone. And this is our very first year. There are free lead organizations that are out there that have been in business for 5 or 10 years that haven't even touched that. We did it in a year. I'm super proud of every one of our agents, of Tim Hildebrand, our trainer, and all of our staff has just really contributed and doing an excellent job building something very successful. However, all businesses, as they grow, and as they develop, run into problems and challenges, and things have to be changed. And so what had happened was, to kind of paint the picture for you, the free lead business is very expensive, to say the least. And there was definitely some things that had to be changed in order to make the business model work. And one of the things that I resisted for the longest time was doing an LOA model where the agency owns the business. And so we originally started the business off where the agents are direct paid. But the reality of that is that that's impossible really to financially work long term, because there's all sorts of problems when agents leave, and if the ownership of the book is theirs, the potential for them to roll the business is there, even though you've financed the entirety of the business out of pocket. It just doesn't make sense. And the role of a free lead organization absolutely should be the case if you're having agents buy leads, for sure. But we came to this conclusion after this aggressive run-up of amazing volume of business that the free lead organization and the approach to doing business was the best way of doing it. And the old way, the traditional way of buying leads, kind of running more of a business, was the wrong way to do it. And we had multitudes of agents who we used to, at the time, let them transition to being a broker, buying our own leads, higher commission, owning the book of business. And we saw them go from $30,000, $40,000 in production to like 10 to 15, to many of them failing out. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so it became, in our mind, obvious that maybe the broker model just doesn't make sense. And so in an effort to give the best opportunity to the agents, we kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. We thought we had enough information and data that running a brokerage, meaning agents buying their own leads at a higher commission, just didn't make sense. So we stopped recruiting agents to the broker model. And then on top of that, we stopped allowing agents in the free lead model move to the broker side. And we felt, and this is where things I think we overcorrected and got wrong, out of a sense of sincere good faith that we wanted to keep agents in something that we just saw the data was better for them. We forced their hand and said, look, you're either going to be with us on free leads or you're not. And if you're not, see you. And my thought was at the time, incorrectly, that more agents who had been in the free lead program would stick with it longer term and see what we saw. But boy, was I wrong. And as we find in life and in business, what you think should happen always runs against the reality of life, of business. And the challenge is trying to decipher between what is wishful thinking versus what is reality. And breaching that in a way that meets, in other words, the market of what the client, in this case, the agent, wants and desires, and having a setup to facilitate that. And so what basically happened is because we had forced a vision of something that wasn't in line with what the agent ultimately wanted, is we lost a good bit of our producers, especially on the top end. And whereas we didn't necessarily have to do that had we had the vision and the perspective that we have now. And so after some deliberation and some realization, we recognize the mistake. That the truth is, for us at least, I can only speak to myself, the free lead approach to the business for many people is a stepping stone to running their own business, paying for their own leads, and having a higher commission contract. And the free lead approach to doing business is what I believe now, for a lot, not all, but a lot, is a way to try out this business with marginal expenses, with minimal risk, to see if it works. And then at a future point, when there's enough money saved up and enough confidence in oneself to take the leap of faith to go to buying leads and running your approach to the business. Along with that recognition, we also made some changes, which were a big mistake, to the compensation structure. And what we originally intended was to modify the compensation structure to not pay agents very well for marginal performance, but to pay them even more for a significant portion of production. And again, it sounded good in theory to say, hey, agents, why don't you work a little bit harder and longer to write a certain amount of production to get therefore paid even more? But the reality, as we saw with this experiment, this idea, is that the implementation did not pan out like we wanted it to. Agents had bad weeks, got paid a lot less than they wanted to. That demoralized them, and it caused some of them to prematurely quit before they gave themselves the amount of time necessary to fill the pipeline, to allow the production to manifest, and to get to a point where they would see a significantly higher income than 20 or 30%. And add to that, it was just unfortunately a PR nightmare. We have people walking around saying, Dave pays 20% commission. And it's not the full story. We pay up to 7% at the time before we change it. We'll get to that in a moment. But it was one of those things where it's like, you know, the idea behind this was really good, but the execution was miserable. So we let that run for a while, and it became obvious with more and more pushback and concern that agents have. We've been recruiting to this system all the while, but it became obvious after running this system for, you know, basically 6 weeks now, that it just wasn't having the impact that we hoped it did. And so after some deliberation about that, plus the brokering model, you know, what I'm here to talk to you today is about what we've done to fix this. Because a lot of you watching this have probably heard about this if you looked at joining our agency, or maybe you left because of some of the changes. And what I'm sharing with you today is hopefully a reinvigorated approach that is much more in line with ultimately what we're about, which is giving the best commissions and the best opportunity available to the new agent, but also the experienced agent that doesn't necessarily want to stay in a free lead situation. So I'm thankful for the feedback that I've gotten along the way and glad that we now have the opportunity to fix that. So what exactly are we doing different? Because there's some things that we changed that we aren't going to change back to. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But what are the big things that we've changed recently as far as how some of these mistakes we've made? So the first thing is we've chucked the tier commission system. So if you looked at us and you're like, 20% sucks, why would I do that? It ain't like that anymore. We have doubled the base level commission to start with. So right now, as of 2025, every agent that starts with the Dig Agency for our primary carriers gets paid 40% commission, which is great. The cool thing is now you have the ability to work your way up to a higher level commission based off of production to as high as 60% commission. And that amount should be very achievable over the course of, say, 3 to 9 months for good agents to work their way up to those higher levels of commissions. And the cool thing is that those numbers, unlike the old system, don't reset every 2-week period. We've chucked that idea out the door. It was a bad idea. So what your commissions are what they are, no matter if you write 1 sale or you write 10 sales. And the given situation now is that you elevate your commission levels higher as you hit those production standards. If you come to a Q&A call, we'll tell you what those standards are. The reason I'm not mentioning here is not trying to hide anything, but people watch this stuff like years later, and then they're like, hey, what about the commissions? Like, well, it may have changed. So come to a Q&A call, message us on contact or whatever, and we'll be happy to explain those. They're very achievable. The other thing that we changed is that we now allow brokers or agents that want to buy their own leads and to do their own lead purchases space and a place with us at the Dig Agency. Now, here's the thing, and this is cool, and I think this is now, after contemplation and discussion with many, this is the right approach to do it. We require every agent to come in as a free lead agent. Why? Because we don't want you to get upended about the investment in order to buy leads. That causes a lot of problems for the vast majority of agents. So we want you to focus on getting good at selling and getting good at the fundamentals. And then as you make sales and as you make money, and as you're in a position of better confidence, we now allow you the opportunity to move to a higher compensation level, to then buy your own leads and to run the system, literally just like you did in the free lead program. And again, there's no required production. You can do it as soon as you want to. We're going to give you counseling and coaching on, like, are you sure you're ready? Do you have this much money available? Do you understand what you're about to get into? But we're going to leave that decision up to you. What's cool about what we're doing now that we haven't ever done, and that we were like really resistant to do this, but you may have noticed this if you've seen some of my content, we're actually taking the free lead system that helped us submit over 7.99 million in business and allowing those systems freely available to agents, whether they're in the Dig Agency or not. So if you move to broker, let's say you start with us, you're in free leads, you want to move to a broker, not only are you going to get a high level of commission, but you're also going to get access to the same CRM that you're using to set preset appointments for you, to automatically communicate with your clients, to then encourage them to set appointments or call in. You're going to get access to the same dialer that you've been using, which has been huge in helping us convert more of our leads into sales. It is unlike any other dialer on the market. Also, you're going to get access to our lead management system where you literally don't have to do your own lead gen. You get to use the same team that is managing our leads at the Dig Agency for the free leads division for your personal consumption. And we don't mark those leads up for you, get them at cost, and that they're the same high quality leads that you had been working that entire time. So now you can make the transition to being a Dig Agency broker at a higher commission and then paying for these services so that you have the ability to literally make that transition as smoothly as possible without some huge influx where you have to change the dialer and the CRM and the leads, and that causes huge problems, I assure you. So you're leveraging us in that transition, which makes it easier and safer to move to a broker position than you would if you were just supposed to figure out things on your own. Also, there exists the opportunity where if you write enough production, we'll talk about that on the Q&A if you come to Q&A call, we don't charge you or reimburse you for all of the costs associated for lead management, for the CRM, and for the dialer. So there's the ability to kind of run your business cost-free as long as you're writing enough business. So I think that's like a huge thing, both the chucking the tier comp and being very straightforward about how compensation works. And then also, getting back to the broker approach, seeing now that we realize that for a lot of people, free leads is a stepping stone to being a broker. Instead of being an impediment to that and forcing your hand and doing the wrong thing, frankly, allowing now there to be the smooth transition to getting to that point so that we can have a longer lasting and more fruitful business when the time comes for you, if it does, to take the next step. So it's been really interesting, going through this process, learning from our mistakes, and seeing that, now that we've run this approach, which I assure you, despite what my haters say, that it was done in good faith, that it was done in a way that was designed to facilitate what we thought at the time was the best approach for the agent. But sometimes you miss the mark, man, and you've got to fix things, and you've got to see it, and at some point you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, as Mr. Rogers once said. Kenny Rogers, not the other Mr. Rogers. Okay. So what are we not changing? So I want to address a couple other issues because there's been some talk or concern about some of the other decisions we've made as a business. And I want to make sure that we address those too, because as much as we've realized that there's some mistakes we've made, there are some things we've done that have improved the business model that are absolutely required, and I think do a lot more good in allowing the business to be as profitable as possible, while also giving you, the agent, the best chances of success. So I want to go over those here as I pull them up here on the screen. So the first one is that we're going to keep the LOA concept. And this is the thing about being in business. If you're buying your own leads and you're taking on a financial risk, you should own the book of business, the future commissions, and the renewals. But anytime you join any free lead organizations, especially ones that have been around for years and understand the model of running the business, that want to have access to the best resources for leads, support, and training, they're all going to be LOA. In other words, if you're getting everything for free, there's going to be a trade-off. And so that's what we're doing at the Dig Agency. Everybody that starts with the Dig Agency is on an LOA platform. But here's the catch. The good news is that now, as soon as you learn this business, and if you feel compelled and want to own your book of business and buy your own leads, we offer the route to eventually getting to that point for yourself. And again, there's no requirements in production or amount of time that has to pass. All you've got to do is simply just say and decide when, and we will absolutely allow you to make that change and get you over into the broker program. So the LOA system stays. Hopefully you understand why. I just think it's really important to mention that and make sure that it is clear to you. Okay, so continuing on here. The other thing that's been controversial that we've covered that not many other organizations do, although I think there's a lot of agency owners that watch my content, and privately they'll tell me what I'm about to describe makes perfect sense and there's so many benefits to it, and I'm surprised more don't do it, but I think you'll see more do it, and that is the joining fee. So we've now enacted a joining fee that agents must pay up front in order to be considered for the Dig Agency. That amount is $1,000. Now, we've always had some kind of financial investment in order to join. It's just typically been licensing, typically $1,500 to $2,000, but we reworked our marketing to require less licenses. So it's about $1,000 or less in most cases to get the required licenses. And then the $1,000 joining fee, which is non-negotiable. You have to pay it in order to join the Dig Agency. So why would we do this? Why would we require a joining fee? Well, there's a couple of benefits to this that ultimately help more agents and allow us more time because of the financial investment the agent is making to join, to help more agents be more successful. And it takes our agency from being good to being great. So let me explain how that works. So first of all is the sales recruiting problem. This has always been a thorn in our side. Every organization that recruits at large volumes this is the like $64,000 question. Like, how do you find good people? And we have tried all different sorts of systems of recruiting where we experimented with very particular approaches where only select people get chosen, but knowing that there was quality talent that we couldn't bring on because they didn't meet our stringent requirements. And so what we've opted for is basically removing this subjective filter and just basically allowing anybody, as long as you're not a jerk, that's like our only real catch, but allowing anybody that's willing to put their money down to get a chance to work inside of our system. Now, some people don't like that. It's like, well, I'm paying money to do a job. Well, no, it's a business opportunity. And the thing that you have to understand is that money talks and money walks, as far as I'm concerned. It shows somebody is interested, that they've got skin in the game. And if that's the metric, what that allows us to do is not have to consider only recruiting the most talented or possibly most talented people. It allows us to look at people who are brand new, maybe never sold anything before, maybe have zero sales experience in insurance, and then run them through a system because they paid their way, and helps us, as we'll get into, finance some of the operations to help them out, to give them more of an opportunity to join. So it really does help tremendously to have us help more people by removing this kind of like Rubik's Cube of figuring out how do you find a good people, to now we just make it a financial requirement to be the main test of whether or not you're going to get in, which finances with cash flow the ability to really answer the main issues that agents run into, as we've discovered and we'll talk about. So the other things that this allows us to do is fund really important initiatives to help new agents become as successful as fast as possible. Again, this is, I think, the differentiating point is that now that people pay their way, it funds our ability to not have to be choosy about the technology we use. We don't have to like cut corners because it's too expensive, and especially on sales training and other initiatives that we do. It ultimately allows us to provide you, the agent, that much more value. So let me give you a couple of examples. So number one, we're able to fund sales management at a higher degree and sales training at a higher degree and more on a one-on-one basis. So we have, with the ability with this funding, we have 2 full-time telesales trainers that have 10 plus years experience in telesales. And their job is very simple. It's to train every single agent on the process of selling. It's to listen to your sales calls and provide tips on what you need to do to get better. And well, this is really cool. If you need help closing a deal because you're just kind of stuck, you can call them to jump on the line. They will help close you like a wingman does. And then you get the sale without having to split the commission. So the benefit to you is that, especially if you're new and you're afraid, am I going to make a sale or not? You know, coming on board that somebody's in your corner to help you close so that you make more money without having to lose commission. And what's cool, something to think about, the amount of split that you would have to do if, say, if it was a 50-50 over time is going to be far, you're going to save a lot more money by paying up front than having to split the commission, which would have been the other opportunity, but we think the 1,000 up front is better. Okay. Now, the other thing it funds is also our the Kickstart fund. So new agents have 30 days to write 10 policies, and as long as you have 10 approved policies, we'll pay you a $1,250 bonus. 10 policies in 30 days if you're full-time is not hard to do. That's like 2.5 sales a week. 2.5 divided by 40 hours is like 13 hours to make one sale. Like, most agents who put in the time and are somewhat following what we teach should get that bonus. And that's a cash bonus. You can spend it on whatever you want. So that allows us to motivate you that much more, that you could get even more than your investment in if you hit those production goals. And trust me, we would much rather give that money back to you and you make those sales, because ultimately where our money truly comes from And our success financially comes from you making sales, not from collecting a fee. Also, it helps us put more live transfer people in seats. It helps us get more leads that are fresh coming in so that you have better quality leads getting worked. And it also just, bottom line, it helps fund the business, keep it profitable so that you guys are doing the best job that you can and getting the best results that you can. So bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, this is the mistake I made, is not understanding. And this is business, right? I mean, like, everybody in business makes mistakes. You know, the key is to recognize them and not be afraid of making mistakes, but knowing when to recognize them and then when to change them. And I definitely apologize to everybody that along the way was not on board with this approach, especially when it came to taking away the brokering. I wish I could take that back for sure. And modifying the commission in a way, now that I look back, it didn't make sense. It made sense in theory, but not in application. So I apologize to everybody that was a part of that process. We now see the error of our ways, and hopefully you can see we're committed to you guys and making sure that we have the best opportunity available for final expense telesales focused agents. And hopefully you see that we've recommitted to that. And, will we make more mistakes in the future? Sure. As Gus Fring said in Breaking Bad, you can make mistakes, but only once. So hopefully that's the case now. So thank you for listening to this. Guys, if you're watching this, you want to learn more about the Dig Agency, and if you like what you've heard and it's exciting, maybe you looked at us or you worked with us and you're like, that's a lot better, then come back. Check out davidduford.com. Watch the overview video. It talks a lot about what I just discussed. And, if you're interested in any of the products or services we offer, if you look up in the link that says like products or services, you'll see the CRM, the dialer, the lead management done for you program. You do not have to work with the Dig Agency to take part of that. We'd love to have you learn more about our agency. Consider joining. And my bottom line here is I hope that you can see that, when we make mistakes, we admit it. And what we're concerned about is, how do we make this business the best for agents? And how can we help them to the maximum event possible? So thank you for listening. See you.